I have the pleasure of being the president of the Affordable Housing Alliance. Want to thank my colleagues on the board. If you just stand, please, for a moment. These folks are elbow to elbow on a daily basis working with our staff. We have transitioned, as you know, to our new logo, our new website, and our new name. So it's a great honor and privilege to open up the 2019 Affordable Housing Alliance Annual Conference. Our mission is leading Connecticut's housing industry in growing affordable and equitable communities. The Affordable Housing Alliance is much more than housing. So if you are a new attendee and know little about what we do, we welcome your ideas and voice to the discussion. We know Connecticut is stronger when we work together to solve our local problems with collective efforts. Whether it's creating affordable housing, employment and economic opportunities, educational opportunities, or addressing transportation and healthcare options, communities working together achieve better outcomes for all. Our members understand that affordable housing is the platform to cultivate improvements in education, employment, and health. I hope as you look at the variety of workshops offered today, you will find something of value to apply to your next challenge to make easier to solve. At our annual meeting in June, we announced the results of the board's strategic planning, visioning, and rebranding exercises. The outcome of those efforts produced a transformation in the way we approach our work. Our three primary goals of community, people, and housing are catalysts for change. Creating local and regional broad sector networks to plan and implement nimble and action-oriented decision-making. With this new strategic approach, the Affordable Housing Alliance needs the input and participation of healthcare, education, transportation, labor, and business leaders to create the sustainable, realistic infrastructure the state needs. We need to capitalize on emerging, locally driven approaches and apply these successes more broadly. Please consider joining the Alliance and help us transform our state to a financially sustainable place, one community at a time. I would like to recognize and thank our premier sponsor, Wells Fargo, our platinum sponsors, Connecticut Green Bank, Capital for Change, People's United Bank, the Department of Housing, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, and Beacon Health Options Connecticut, and the many other sponsors that have contributed to this year's conference. Without your support, the conference would not be possible. Finally, I look forward to seeing you at our network reception beginning at 3 p.m. Join us in celebrating the conclusion of our 30th annual conference, and please participate in our silent auction, which assists the Affordable Housing Alliance to do our important work. Thank you. I also have the pleasure now to introduce Commissioner Sela Mosquera Bruno from the Department of Housing. Commissioner?
Good morning. Wow, good morning. You're still so weak. Do they have just one cup of coffee? Well, you know, I'm supposed to introduce the governor. I'm trying to see if the governor is here. Or maybe I had to entertain you for a little bit. Okay, so now I can continue with the program. It's really, this is a treat for me to be here. You guys, I feel I am among friends. I have been a housing developer for many, many years. I have been coming to this conference for many, many years. I was the board president at one point of the Connecticut Housing Coalition. And this celebrating 30 years is just great. So thank you for inviting me. And since the governor is here, I just want to brag a little bit about what we have been doing. So the Department of Housing has been working under the Lamont administration, a couple of accomplishments. We have closed over $95 million in estate bond financing, leveraging more than $300 million. This resulted in the creation of 1,040 housing units, of which 908 will be affordable to extremely low and moderate income families. Currently, the department is involved in 93 active housing construction projects, valued at $1 billion in total development cost, of which $342 million is being invested by the state of Connecticut. Of the total of 3,800 housing units, 3,000 will be affordable. So at lunchtime, I will continue with some of the accomplishments and some of the challenges that we have. At this moment, I would like to introduce the governor of Connecticut, El Jefe, the boss, Governor Ned Lamont. Good morning.
Nice to see you. How long should I go?
Oh, whatever you want. 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How's Sayla doing so far? She off to a good start? I hope so.
I only got one. Come on, guys.
Yeah. I was just reading the news. I'm sorry, I think out loud a little bit in these speeches, which drives my comms team absolutely crazy. But I was sort of shocked looking at some of the language coming out of Washington, D.C. When they see the homelessness, especially in some of our urban centers on the West Coast. And the idea that this requires a law and order solution, and blaming the programs instead of trying to solve a problem. And I just think that's wrong on so many fronts. What Sayla has done, and what Lisa Tepper Bates, and what our predecessors have done, and what Dan Malloy did on affordable housing, we've tried to stay ahead of what could be a crisis. And we've tried to make sure that we have the rental assistance and the permanent housing and the intermediate housing and the job training and the mental supports we need to help these folks get back on their feet. That's the answer to this problem, not what you're talking about. And it's doubly tragic to me because I was just out in San Francisco, and look, it's once in Golconda. I mean, it's extraordinary, the wealth and the success. You're going to look back in 100, 200 years and what was going on in Silicon Valley, like Florence, Italy, Rome at its peak, and yet the tragedy of homelessness that you see everywhere you walk. And we're going to confront that hard, I hope, as a nation. And we're going to take a lead here in the state of Connecticut. And that's part of the reason each and every one of you are doing what you're doing. And see, Lisa and me and our economic development, our team, we're with you, and we're going to keep fighting. I wanted, if I could, just to pull the lens back a little bit as well when it comes to housing. And talk a little bit about what I think this state is going to look like in 10 years and 20 years. And to make sure that it's a state that includes everybody. Make sure it's a state that includes everybody so they have a roof over their head, decent education opportunity, good job opportunity, and we respect everybody. We respect our diversity, and we cherish our diversity, and we make sure that we leave no one behind. And I am a business person, so when I think about the state, you know, I ran for office because I didn't like this, I'm down on Connecticut stuff. Connecticut can't get out of its own way. There goes GE, next one out the door. This is a country where we have major metropolitan centers. All the young people want to go to the big metropolitan centers. Where does that leave Connecticut? We just have, you know, smaller cities. Woe is us. This is not our time, right? You heard that a lot. And I say nonsense. And what I do as an entrepreneur is I look for our strengths, and I try and play off of our strengths. And housing is a big part of what we've got to do. I look at the fact that Connecticut is anchored between two of the great major metropolitan centers in the world. You know, one is New York City. You know, I think London fouled up on Brexit a little bit, and they were vying to be the international capital of the world. They fouled up, and New York is going to be the international capital of the world. And at least for folks in you know, the southern part of the state and beyond, you know, we are part of that major international ecosystem, the greater New York City market. We have extraordinary advantages in terms of a number of companies I'm talking to want to come to Connecticut. They love our quality of life. They love our quality of schools. They love the fact that there is housing. Believe it or not, a lot less expensive than you know, lower Manhattan and Midtown Manhattan and other places. They want us to do more there. Joe Giletti's here, our amazing Commissioner of Transportation. We're working together every day. And to be part of the New York Metro line, Center, we've got to be able to get there. You've got to be able to get from New Haven to Bridgeport to Stamford. If I can speed up that rail service from Bridgeport to Stamford to New York, all of a sudden, all that housing is now part of a bigger ecosystem. And we've let that slip a little bit. And, you know, on our other side is Boston. And they're having their own type of renaissance. And that's our Athens, if you would. And all the life sciences and bioscience and university work that's happening there and propelling their growth. But it's also bumper-to-bumper gridlock, and it's also absolutely unaffordable. And we're getting knocks on the door every day from folks who are saying, let me rethink Connecticut a little bit. You know, you've got New Haven with life sciences and one of the greatest universities in the world and that whole biotech corridor. And your lab space is, you know, 1/3 the cost of what it is, say, in Boston. And we want to be part. We are, when you're talking about a metro center, we are a metro center. That's Boston, Connecticut, and New York as part of this amazing metro center going forward. And that's what I think about this state. I mean, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, Gov, you know, we need county government. We are a county. We're not that big a state. I mean, come on. I mean, we're a little bigger than Brooklyn. We're not as big as San Diego County. You know, they do it with one housing commissioner. They do it with, you know, one superintendent of schools, one fire chief, one police chief. You know, we can think a lot more holistically. And transportation allows us to think a lot more holistically. I think about our cities. I want them to grow. I want them to expand. And I want them not to be high tax areas. I want them to be lower tax areas where companies and people and young people have an incentive to be there. I want them to be our major transportation hub. You know, as I look around this state, start down south, I look at Stamford, and oh, woe is me, UBS is leaving, the financial services is shrinking. Where does that leave Stamford? Leaves us in a lot of places. That whole UBS trading floor, you remember that? That was the biggest trading floor in the world. Well, within a year or so, it's going to be the largest digital production studio in the world. That's how societies change. We modernize. We take to the next generation of jobs there. You know, further north, we mentioned what New Haven is in terms of life sciences and biotech. You know, going down, let's go down Shoreline East. We get that more regular, a little bit faster, make that easier accessible. Go up to a place like New London, you know, a city that fell behind. Now its best days are ahead of it, and its best days are coming. And you've got what's going on in an electric boat, what's going on there in terms of wind power, and thousands of jobs, thousands of good-paying jobs. And I got to train people and make sure we have the people ready for those jobs. And I was up at New London a lot. And, I talked to the Secretary of Defense. I talked to Jeffrey Geiger, who's the outgoing CEO at Electric Boat. And they said, look, we're hiring. We believe in the state. We know the quality of your workforce. The schools are good. They could get a little better. They could focus more on the skills that we need. But we're really worried about housing. This is the Secretary of Defense. This is what he's asking me. He's saying, will there be the places for those younger folks who are trying to recruit to stay? And we got a lot of old World War II, single-family homes on an acre or something out there. How about downtown Groton? How about downtown New London? Why don't we have some of the multi-unit housing in there? And by the way, that multi-unit housing is going to have to be a mix of market rate and affordable. And we're going to make sure that, and this is the business community talking. These are folks I really got to impress why it's so important that affordable housing is part of our grand strategy for the state, because it's the right thing to do for those folks who are homeless. It's the right thing to do in terms of job creation and economic development, and it makes our state whole again. Because we're one state, and we're in this together. And, those small towns, and you're putting all the money in the cities. How about us? Hey, look, you love your small town. You love the fact that it's, rural and green. And you want to ease your access to those cities. And you want to have great schools there. And we're going to have 5G, so you can do in that small town what you can do in Brooklyn, Connecticut. You can do it in Brooklyn, New York. You can do the same. And as the world changes, make it easier for people to, maybe you're working a couple days a week out of your home. Maybe you're going to New York or Stanford, once or twice a week. And we think about housing in that broader context as well, because it's key to our economic future, and it's key to opportunity. And I was campaigning, and you're out there, you're shaking hands and vote for me and all that stuff. But I also, I learn a lot. You put your politicians through hell, but I think they're, I like to think we're better for what we do, the campaign. And I was taking a bus through New Haven. I remember this like yesterday. Saying hi to a few people. How are you? And, one kid came and sat down next to me. And I said, well, where are you going? He says, I'm on my way to work. I said, that's great. This is amazing. How long you work there? My first day. And I said, oh, okay, that's good. Everybody, you're going. I feel your enthusiasm. What were you doing before? He said, a month ago I was living on the streets. And this was not drugs. This was not mental health. This was a kid who looked a little bit like my kid. And living on the streets? Yeah, my mom had a problem with her boyfriend, and it was hell, and I was living on the streets. And then I met someone from a halfway house that got me on my feet and, dusted me off and got me a shower and showed me some respect. And they tried to find relatives, and they finally found a group home that I could stay in. But that was all, done in a matter of a couple of months. And I found myself a place to stay with some rental assistance. And then I had a home. I had a roof. I had a bus stop. I knew what school district I was in. I maybe even had a chance to get a credit card. And now I got a job. And this is what you do every day. These are the small differences that make a difference. This is what they got to do in California and these other places. You know, put the billy clubs away. Go talk to these people. If it's mental health, if it's drug addiction, if it's a rung on the ladder, give them that opportunity. And it often starts with a roof over your head. And I need you to... You know, one last thought. These are advocates. I hope everybody here is an advocate. But help us think through this. You know, we're in a little tight fiscal situation in this state, so I'm always trying to think of creative ways I can continue to move the ball. And I had the trades come in the other day. These are the builders. And they said something interesting to me. They said, look, we've got a couple $2 billion in our pension fund. We're putting our pension fund into a housing and infrastructure funds. We're ready to provide another layer of finance over and above the initial layer that you provide, and maybe the privates, and we want to help take the lead. The Housing Investment Trust hits. So take a look at that. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe it's the way we ought to do it. And by the way, these are good jobs for the carpenters or workers who are doing this with a good pay and real respect. And you know, I'm not big on you know, the federal opportunity zones are out there. We got something like 71. Is that right, David? 72. Close. And you know, these opportunities, I mean, we have to think as a affordable housing advocacy community how we can play in these opportunity zones. You know, they are from, you know, they're either great incentives or really rich giveaway, depending on where you are. They are ways to attract real private capital, and they forgive capital gains over a period of 10 years. And these are places that housing and DECD, we're trying to find our partners so we can leverage the tens of millions of dollars that Selah mentioned and expand that to the hundreds of millions of dollars and get the leverage we need to do what we got to do. And I'll just leave you with, so I need you to advocate for more. I also need you to advocate for more and better and innovative ways we can do this. But I promise, you know, that when I go down and I talk to the financial advisors in Stanford, which I'm doing next, and I think I know what that conversation is going to be about, that I'll also tell the story about that kid in New Haven and say, you know, we're in this together as a state. And that's what makes Connecticut an amazing place. We love the values of the state. We love the values that each and every one of you represent. And that's why we're staying. That's why we believe in this state and believe in what each and every one of you are doing. That's all I got to say.
So if you can stay for a little bit so we can give them the word together.
Sure.
This way, coach.
Come this way.
Good morning. I'm Florence Villano. I'm the Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Alliance, and I would like to echo Carol's welcome to all of you this morning. Thank you so much, Governor. I think that you find in this group of people willing partners. We are very creative, and we know how to work together. And one of the themes of today's conference is our interconnectedness. And that is why you see Commissioner Giletti here, and we have representatives of the health sector here and transportation. So, and we're looking to do more. So, thank you very much. We are presenting an award today to a very special person. And when you talk about homelessness, Governor, there can be no other person that wouldn't spring to mind to everybody in this room that's in affordable housing, but the name of Janice Elliott. We all aspire to leave the world a better place. Janice Elliott has already done that. She has worked throughout her career creating solutions to prevent and end homelessness by advocating for systems change and creation of supportive and affordable housing for vulnerable individuals and families. Her work was central to Connecticut taking a different approach to homelessness. As Director of Southern New England and Managing Director for National Programs at the Corporation for Supportive Housing, she created and implemented the Supportive Housing Demonstration and Supportive Housing Pilot Program. These programs included a rigorous and thorough evaluation component that proved incontrovertibly that supportive housing was an essential component in the effort to end homelessness. Clearly improving the lives of those housed with supports and disproving one of the more common tropes raised against affordable housing developments, these developments did not negatively impact property values. Janice went on from the Corporation for Supportive Housing to become the executive director of the Melville Charitable Trust. I can think of no more appropriate place for her to be and to be wrapping up this part of her career, because I'm sure there's going to be more to come, than to be at Melville, because Melville is the only national foundation that focuses solely on homelessness. And she has shepherded us through the Reaching Home campaign, as we all know, successfully ending homelessness for veterans, one-for-one match for everybody on the by name list for those who are chronically homeless. And now we are working towards youth and family homelessness and ending that by 2023. And without Janice's guidance and wisdom, we would not be as far along as we are today. She is not only a treasure to Connecticut, but she is nationally recognized across the nation. And California would do well to call her and maybe have her make a visit. or maybe go to the White House and have a talk with that gentleman. She is self-effacing and quiet, and yet her presence is always felt when she's in the room. She is witty and funny and a delight to talk to. And, you know, there are so many of us in this room that owe her a debt of gratitude, because we would not be in the shape that we are in, and as much as we all know there's plenty more work to do, we have made real progress, and that is due to her. So and most importantly, she and I share the same hometown. I mean, that's, you know, goes without saying. So, but I would like to call Janice up to the podium, and we have a little something for her. We chose that because we thought it looked like a house. It was the closest it was the closest we could get. And let me just very briefly tell you what it says. This is the Vanguard Award for Leadership. The Affordable Housing Alliance recognizes and honors Janice Elliott for her leadership, innovation, and perseverance in preventing and ending homelessness, her lifetime of advocacy for social well-being, and her patience and relentless efforts in transforming political and social systems to address the shortage of affordable housing for all Connecticut residents, September 19, 2019. And now Janice Elliott.
Wow, what a great crowd. Thank you so much. Thank you, Governor Lamont. Thank you, Selah. Thank you, Florence. And thank you to all of you. This is quite an honor. I'm very deeply honored to be the first recipient of the Vanguard Award and really truly appreciate the recognition. So as I approach my retirement at the end of this year, I feel such a deep sense of gratitude to all of those individuals and organizations who over the years took me under their wing and allowed me to learn on the job and with great mentors, and have given me invaluable experience in a field that I love. Folks ask me what it feels like to be retiring soon, and I have to admit it feels bittersweet. On the bitter side is what will be missed. I will dearly miss working with such wonderful colleagues like all of you who focus their creativity and passion every day to creating homes, ending homelessness, and fighting for justice. I will also miss the process of invention, creating and designing new initiatives and strategies to tackle problems in new ways, something that's always been a great joy. On the sweet side of the bittersweet, though, is excitement for what is to come. Admittedly, I'm excited about waking up in the morning without an alarm clock and about taking the occasional nap. I'm also excited for the process of reinvention, of self and purpose that comes with a major life change like this. But right now, I'm most excited about what is to come for the housing field. The first of these is the ascent of the next generation of leadership in this field. Rising leaders with energy and smarts that will lead the organizations as we retirees transition away, and who themselves will take younger staff under their wings and allow them to learn on the job and grow in their work. The second thing I'm excited about is the expanded awareness and focus on how fundamental place is to promise and the importance of racial equity. We as a state and a nation are finally starting to recognize that healthcare reform and education reform are as much to do with where people live and the conditions in which they live as the care they receive. We're now seeing healthcare advocates become housing advocates because they understand that having a quality, affordable home promotes healthy, productive lives and preventing long-term health problems. And we're seeing education advocates becoming housing advocates because teachers know that children learn better and are more likely to graduate when they live in a stable, affordable home. And there's a greater recognition that we cannot prosper as a state unless we ensure, as Governor Lamont said, that all of our residents have decent places to live that they can afford. Exclusion, segregation, and the acceptance that it's okay that private sector market forces determine whether someone has a decent home or not. This is the Achilles heel of our otherwise fabulous state and our wonderful nation. And we're all much more aware of this now thanks to the incredible work of so many of you. And finally, I'm excited that the appalling political turmoil of our age, as painful as it is laying the groundwork for new activism. People are fired up more than ever before, and there's an uptick in advocacy and mobilizing and pushing government to do the right things and to undo the wrong things. In some parts of the country, this new activism is leading to stronger tenant protections, greater investment in housing affordability and supply, and important zoning reforms. It is a time ripe with opportunity for organizing and pushing for change. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find among us retirees a silver tsunami of folks eager to join the fight as civilians. After all, we may be retired, but we're not tired. That's as long as we have our naps. Thank you so much, all of you. God bless you. Thank you.
I have no idea what time it is. So if somebody could just, 10:05, okay. Well, we're on course. Our first set of workshops begins at 10:15. I'm going to send you now out into the world of the Red Lion Hotel to find the workshop that you have chosen. I want to mention two things to you that we haven't talked about. There is a fabulous timeline of fair housing in this hallway in back of you. Please visit it. It is a wonderful presentation and an education even to those of us who think we know all about it. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are running a silent auction. We are a nonprofit, and we need to raise money, and we are running a silent auction, so please stop by the silent auction table and see what you would like to bid on. And now, thank you very much, and we'll see you back in here at lunch.